Hello, Internet. It is I, the Malik Aaron, and welcome back to Box Office Predictions. Today we're going to be talking about A Haunting in Venice. So, as usual, we're going to be going over the pros and cons. So, let's get to it. Pros. Okay. This is the third movie in the Kenneth Branagh's Hercule. I don't know how to say this dude's name. And I don't really care how to say this dude's name. All I know is that it's Kenneth Branagh with a weird mustache. That's what I'm calling his character. So this is the third movie in this series. And the first movie came out in 2017. This. And this movie has like quite the cast now. You look at it, you got Penelope Cruz, Willem Dafoe, Judi Dench, Johnny Depp, Josh Gad, Michelle Pfeiffer, Daisy Ridley. Stacked cast, actually. So this came out like the same month. It was like November 2017 was kind of packed. You had Thor Ragnarok, you had this, you had the ill-fated Justice League movie, you had Wonder, and you had like Coco. And this came out like I think it was Daddy's Home too, but best we forget that happened. But yeah, this came out like after Thor Ragnarok, and it did quite well for itself. It opened with like 28 million, made just over 100 million domestic, made over 350 million worldwide on a budget of 55 million. That's quite good. And that is very good. So naturally, you know, you can't just have this be like a one and done movie. You got to make more. And so we got more with Death on the Nile 5 years later, although it wasn't supposed to be like that. Because I believe this was supposed to come out, was it 2019 or 2020? I don't, it was one of those years. But this movie was affected by both the 20th Century Studios, like, well, 20th Century Fox acquisition, Disney acquiring them, and then having to deal with that, and then obviously COVID screwing up everything. So this movie got delayed for years. Years, man. I talked about this movie way too much in my canceled series because it got pushed like again and again and again. And I was wondering, does this even exist? Is this movie even gonna come out? And then not to mention one of the actors, where is he? Army Hammer, got canceled for not only being accused of sexual assault, but also being accused of being a cannibal. So that happened. Um, so despite all of that, it actually released last year, and it didn't do great at all. But you know what? It could have been a lot worse. But it didn't do well. But considering everything the movie went through, not to mention the environment it was in, it still wasn't great for movies. It could have done worse. Now here we are with Haunting in Venice, and with Haunting in Venice, the marketplace is way healthier than it was like back when Death on the Nile came out. So we made a lot of progress in like that, near that, I guess, that year and a half, a little over a year and a half since the last one. So so the first movie was a hit. Second movie, no, but at least the first movie was still a hit. But this movie clearly has an audience. They're all here to see Kenneth Branagh and his, again, weird mustache. So I guess I'm gonna label the series as a pro, albeit it's not a strong pro. So I'm gonna label that as a pro. So that's pro number one. Pro number two, the cast is we got some notable names here. Kenneth Branagh, our main guy. This is basically his passion project at this point. Besides these movies, what else has he been in that I would recognize? Uh, Wild Wild. Oh no, we're ignoring that. Um, he no he was like the no, that wasn't him. It was Kevin Kline. I thought he was with Will Smith. So we're not going to count Wild Wild West, and we shouldn't. He was in the first Harry Potter. No, not the first. Chamber of Secrets. He was in that. I did not know that. This Valkyrie, which is like whatever. He's been in some Christopher Nolan movies, Dunkirk, Tenet, Oppenheimer recently. So I mean, there's that. And then he's also a director. Obviously, he's directed these movies, but he's also responsible for directing. I don't think any of these movies we should mention them. The first Thor and the 2015 Cinderella movie. I mean, that's cool. But he also made Artemis Fowl, a movie we shall wipe from our memories and pretend never happened. So yeah, uh, Belfast, a movie no one cared about. So yeah, he has some successes under his belt, but he's also has some duds. Artemis Fowl is probably his biggest career black eye. um, so yeah, but he's a recognizable name, and so is some of the other people here. I mean, Jamie Dorman. Oh no, Christian Grey from the 50 Shades movies. Why? Why? I'm amazed he hasn't been like Robert Pattinson. Like Robert Pattinson fucking hates Twilight. Like he hates those movies so much, and I think that's hysterical. It really makes me like the guy. I'm surprised like Jamie Dorman hasn't done it with the 50 Shades movies, because these movies are just an abomination to cinema. They are a crime against decent relationships. They are just awful movies. Although they're not as bad as the After movies. Those are worse. So, yeah, but he's mainly known for the 50 Shades movies. So, ugh, that's not great. Who else do we got? Tina Fey. Yeah, she's been in a lot of stuff. Mean Girls. Classic, in my opinion. Many people's opinions. Absolute classic. Absolute banger right there. Certified banger. That, Baby Mama, Date Night, Megamind. Well, she did a voice for that, but still, she was like Roxanne with her massive forehead. And trying to deal with the simp slash incel and Hal Stewart. uh, that movie is great. It's just it's great. But then after that, it's been very just non-existent. um, the big I mean, there's Sisters, which did all right, but after that, just nothing. But she's still a recognizable face. You definitely say that. I believe there's one more recognizable face that I know, Michelle Yeoh, who last year obviously had Everything Everywhere All at Once, a movie that won her an Oscar, a movie that is probably it was definitely my favorite of last year. She fucking earned that Oscar, and yeah, that was probably like the greatest performance of her career, honestly. And then like the rest of her resume, she's been in a lot here. Tomorrow Never Dies. She was in that. Oh, okay. That Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, the more memoir. How do I say this? Gosh, memoirs of a geisha, which did like meh. The Mummy 3. Ooh. Not counting Kung Fu Panda 2. She was in Guardians 2. I did not know that. I don't remember that at all. She's also in Crazy Rich Asians and Shang-Chi and the yeah, Shang-Chi. And then here we are with Haunting in Venice. So yeah, so it's like the last year, like man, she really like popped off. Mainly pretty much entirely thanks to Everything Everywhere All at Once. So we got some recognizable names in here. I wouldn't call anyone here a draw, but you know, it's recognizable at least. So I'm gonna say that's a pro, albeit not exactly a strong pro. I guess another pro are the reviews for this movie. They are quite good. I gotta go back to them. This may take a minute. Well, not even a minute, more like a few seconds. Here it is. So it has a 79% critic score, which I'm like, okay, that's pretty solid. Audience score is a 70, which is not very good, if you ask me. That's a sign that word of mouth is real iffy. And another sign that word of mouth is real iffy is the cinema score, which I'm about to bring up right here. If it decides to load. Alright, here we go. Cinema score is a B, which is not great. That is a score you don't want to have. I mean, that's the score like the Flash got. So, yeah, again, score you don't want to have. But the thing is, the B score is the same as the other movies in this series. Like, Murder on the Orient Express got a B, and Death on the Nile got a B too. So, at least word of mouth is consistent. It's not like worse or anything. So solid critic score, less than stellar audience score, and cinema score. So that's kind of a minor pro. This is a very minor pro. Actually, it's more of like a middle ground thing. So I'm gonna label this. Not even, this is not even a pro. It's a middle ground. Just overall reaction to this movie. Um, is there any other pros? I mean, I guess this is the big movie of the weekend, which really isn't saying a lot. It's not exactly a high achievement. Because this weekend always looked pretty dead. I mean, I guess, well, Challengers was supposed to come out this weekend, but then that moved to next April because you can have Zendaya promote the movie, and like the studio said, well, if she can't promote the movie, then we're not releasing it this year. So yeah, so it's basically it was just this by itself. So like this movie has all the spotlight, so I guess that's a pro. I guess another pro is that the marketing's been okay-ish. I've been seeing like quite a few ads for this movie. So Disney are at least like trying to push it a little bit. So I'm gonna label that as a pro. And I think that's really it. Okay, cons. So yeah, with these movies, like the thing is, okay, here's the thing. I did not know this was a part of this series. I just saw Haunting in Venice, which is like some random horror movie that was just out there, and I'm like, okay, whatever. I had no idea this was connected to the other ones. I was like, oh, this is a franchise movie. Okay, did not know that. But the thing is, I thought like, Murder on the Orient Express, it was a hit, but it wasn't like a beloved movie or anything. Then Death on the Nile, sure, it had to deal with a lot of problems, but there's a big dip, a very noticeable dip in box office, as you can clearly see. But there's also the fact that Death on the Nile had that open like on Super Bowl weekend, and that is a death sentence for any movie. You basically that's a 2 day weekend. Sunday, forget about it. So yeah, so like as you see there, a big dip, huge dip. Like that's Death on the Nile didn't even make like half as much as Murder on the Orient Express, which is kind of shocking. It shocks me how Haunting in Venice even exists. Because usually you see a result like this for Death on the Nile and be like, okay, that's it. We're wrapping up the franchise. No more movies. It's over. It's dead. But they decided to greenlight Haunting in Venice and just make it just because, I guess. So, yeah, but yeah, the underperformance of Death on the Nile, that's a huge problem. So that's a con. Definitely. Another con is the fact that I know this isn't a horror movie per se. This is a supernatural movie. That's what's officially being labeled, but it still has like horror elements are still there. They're just not as open as like other movies. Like it's still there. But you have like The Nun 2, which came out last weekend, so that could be considered direct competition. And then like next few weeks, what do we got? Saw X, Exorcist Believer. Like after that, like obviously those movies might eat into this movie's audience. So all that direct competition, and not to mention just general competition, because like late September and onwards is gonna be rough for this movie, or really any old movie. Because you gotta deal with like a bunch of movies coming out the 29th, then you gotta deal with Exorcist, and then the big one, the mega one, the Taylor Swift Eras Tour concert movie. Gotta deal with that beast. And it's just gonna be rough. So overall competition later on, that's gonna be a real issue. So that's a con. Uh I guess like I mentioned, it's Thursday preview, 1.2 million, which I believe is the same as Death on the Nile. 1.2. What did this make? 1.1. So literally about the same. But the thing is, this opened with like 12 million. Sure, like as you can see, the 65% drop because that was because of Super Bowl. But even without Super Bowl, it probably would have just made like what, a couple million more, but like what, 15 million? Not even 15 million. So like 14, 15 million, which still wouldn't have been very good at all. So the fact that the Thursday previews are similar, that's just not a good sign, in my opinion. And like Murder on the Orient Express, I don't think that's a good comparison at all. 1.6, but that had a much better release date and was like pushed way harder. So yeah. So yeah, that the fact that it's Thursday previews are really close to Death on the Nile, that's a bad sign. So yeah, I'm gonna label that as a con. So yeah. And I think that's it. Is that it? Yeah, that's it. So opening weekend, looking at the other Kenneth Branagh mystery movies. All right. The first one opened with 28 million. The second one 12. Haunting in Venice should, at the very least, do better than Death on the Nile because there's no Super Bowl to deal with. So it should at least outperform that, but I don't think it will be by much. 15 million seems like a stretch. Maybe 13 to 15 million. Let's go with that. 13 to 15 million opening weekend. And its total, its legs. I mean, the previous two movies have had decent enough legs. I can't imagine it'll be different for this. Maybe 40 to 50 million. Probably the same amount as Death on the Nile. And considering the movie costs like $60 million, that's not great. So this movie needs to really, do well overseas to justify its existence. So yeah. So that's it. But we're not done. No, no, no. Mm-mm. We got one more movie to talk about, but it'll be a quick one, I imagine. The Inventor, and then we'll be done for the weekend. And then next weekend, like Expendables. That's what I'm calling it because that's what it's titled, and It Lives Inside. That'll be like next weekend, but yeah. So stay tuned for those. But yeah, that's it. That's all. Make sure to subscribe, like this video, leave a comment, turn on notifications, share the whole drill. We'll check out more videos like this. I got playlists on the homepage, all previous prediction videos I made this year. You want to watch any of them from beginning to now? No, actually, no. You want to watch any of them, like the ones I made this year, the past few years? You want to watch any of them? Go right ahead. And there's also the canceled series where I go over all the movies that were supposed to come out but didn't. I never talked about Haunting in Venice once. I think it's because I just thought it was just some random movie. I didn't think it was like, I had no idea this was connected to the with Death on the Nile and Murder on Orient Express. I had no clue. So that's probably why I didn't never mention it. um, but yeah, I've now made 206 episodes of Canceled. So if you want to watch any of those episodes from beginning to now, I highly encourage you to do that. If you want to binge them all from beginning to now, I highly encourage you to do that. So go do it. There's also what was it? Box office recaps where I go over the box office results for a particular month. September recap will come out in October, about the first 2 weeks of October, right before the Eras Tour concert movie, you know, releases. And so far, September has been pretty bleh, which is pretty much on just it just feels like regular old September, very bleh month. Most Septembers are like that, and this is no exception. So it is at least a little is livelier than last year. Okay, so we'll give it that. But yeah, that's September recap will come out in October, and my 3-part summer recap. The non-losers, the small losers, big losers. That'll come out in about 2 weeks' time, roughly 2 weeks' time. So stay tuned for those videos. But if you want to watch any of the past recap videos of me on the channel, you can go right ahead. And yeah, that's it. That's all. I am out. Goodbye.